So we've got Michael, who's done something interesting.
I have.
A hobby.
I promised last week on the upload I'd have a spicy profile, and yeah, I kind of went 5-0 with Super Quantums at an OTS championship. So
Now,
Here we
is that
are.
due to no one know what Super Quantum cards do, or just
I
Next
honestly
good.
actually think it's both. Like, people didn't know what to stop. Like, I played against a couple of people and I activated a card to search. Like, yeah, I'll ash that and my turn ended.
like most rogue decks?
Like most rogue decks. But I mean, my hand was terrible. I had no follow up. But the thing is, I actually think Super Quants are actually pretty decent because they all float. Well, technically, they all do stuff when they send to graveyard. They can actually play through Interruption pretty well. So
Just need the right format.
yeah, and this format's kind of come along because against Dragon Link, this deck would suck. But we don't have Dragon Link anymore.
Yay.
Yeah.
So let's get into the list.
Rightio. So, most people probably have no idea what these cards do, so I'll lay them out and then I'll explain. The Super Quants is basically Power Rangers, by the way, just in case you're unaware. So, we have 3 white layer,
Sponsored.
3 red layer. That's actually more than just an Infinite extender. 3 green layer, 3 blue layer, and 3 Fury Elfan. So, all of the Super Quants have an effect that when they're sent to graveyard, by any means, they do something, but Elfan's different, so I'll just put him to the side and explain him later. White layer, when sent to the graveyard, searches Elfan. Red layer, when sent to the graveyard, special summons a Super Quant except himself, but it can't activate its effects. Green layer says you can discard a Super Quantum card to draw a card, and blue layer lets you shuffle up to 3 Super Quant cards back into the deck, and this does include the extra ones. As for their own summon effects, blue layer these are all normal or special summon. Blue layer searches for any Super Quantum card. Green layer lets you special summon a Super Quant from hand. Red layer lets you add a Super Quant from graveyard back to hand, and red layer can also special summon himself for free like Cyber Dragon if you control no monsters. And then white layer is a little different because he's 7. He doesn't, obviously, like you either tribute summon him or by his own effect, which says that if he's in your hand, you can send 1 non-light Super Quantum monster from hand or field to grave to special summon him in defense position. And then for Elfan, which is one of the better, probably in my opinion, one of the key cards in this deck, Elfan lets you target a Super Quantum monster you control, then all monsters you control become that level, which allows you to tutor some of your Xyz summons. So if you only have, say, like 1/4, 1/3, or 1 whatever, and then get this guy out. But the second effect that's bigger is the fact that you can tribute Elfan off the field, reveal 3 Super Quantums from deck with different names, randomly special summon 1, and mill the other 2. This is your best way to generate lots of advantage, because there's basically no wrong combination of ones you can mill. You know, if you generally, I'd always do red and blue, but then either green or white depending on my hand. If I had no other Super Quants in hand, I generally wouldn't reveal green because both his on summon and graveyard effect wouldn't work with no Super Quants in hand. But that's when it just comes down to reading the matchup and kind of knowing what your opponent's doing or playing, or guessing where the match is going to go. So that's it for the main deck Super Quant monsters. Then for the rest of the monsters, 1 Artifact Scythe, we'll get to that way, 3 Bell, and 3 Ash. There's a lot of space in this deck to run, you know, techs and utilities and staples and that sort of thing. So I just figured that Ash and Ghost Bell were the best monster hand traps I can run for our locals. I think overall for like the entire meta, Skullmeister and DD Crow are definitely worth playing at the moment. But I just chose to run with these because they hit the widest variety of sort of stuff. And moving on to the spell cards. 3 Super Quantal Mech, Ship Magna Carrier, and a Terraforming to search it. This card has a giant wall of text, but in essence, all it does as a field spell is it lets you discard a card, then target one of your rangers, you know, your little Super Quantal dudes. So blue, green, red, white.
No yellow.
No yellow, sadly. It'd be cool if we could get one. Or pink. And then after discarding a card, it allows you to Xyz summon their matching mech from the extra deck just by slapping them straight on top.
The zoo.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So, but you have to discard to summon. And then the secondary effect says you can send the field spell to Graver's cost, then target 3 of the Super Quant Xyz monsters either on your field or in the grave, then special summon their boss monster Magnus, and attach everything you targeted to him as material. I didn't actually get to summon Magnus, which was kind of sad, because I'll show him when we get to the extra deck that he's probably one of the strongest boss monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Even compared to stuff like Dragoon Masterpiece. Just, he's very hard to summon. For the rest of the spells, 3 Desires. I mean, this deck you've seen so far, it's playing like nothing but 3 elves apart from the Scythe and the Terraforming. So this just helped with consistency. I wasn't running this until like 2 hours before the championship. And I messaged Thomas and was like, I should be playing Desires now, shouldn't I? And he's like, yeah, you dingus. This came in clutch quite a lot. It really just helps with having the extra card. There was one situation where I used Desires and banished 2 red layers and 2 blue layers and had the red in hand. And then to set up a combo, there was a line that I could do using Elfan that if I then dumped green layer and discarded the red and organized my chains, I could have made a huge board, but I stuffed it up and discarded the wrong card for green. And then for the rest of the one-off spells, Call By.
Broken.
1 for 1.
Broken.
Get access to Elfan. E-Tally for blue layer. And double or nothing, because this deck can make rank 4s. And Utopia Double's still coming strong. I did kill somebody with it. And if you banish it off Desires, well then just get good. And moving on to the trap cards. 3 strikes. And 3 imperms, which if you're counting brings the deck to a nice 39, because we then play 1 stupid card that should still be banned, Imperial Order. So, yeah, that's the main deck. It's basically look at whatever super quants you draw, because like mathematically with these ratios, you'll open like 2 or field spell plus 1, do some combos, make some Xyz dudes, and then set some back row and sit on hand traps.
So this is mid-range?
Definitely, yeah. Well, the thing is, one thing that like really appealed to me to this deck is the fact that with the little guys, when they go to graveyard doing stuff, if you make the Xyz monsters, and then the Xyz monsters die, get banished, destroyed, shuffled, anything, the materials go to grave and still trigger. So like even during your opponent's turn, if they pop one of the Xyz with a red layer can then special summon back a super quant monster, or blue layer can shuffle back and give you some recursion, or white layer searches you Elfan, which is your your best starter in the deck.
So Virtual World going out of the format really helped this deck.
Yeah, well the Virtual World's back in the format at the moment. The YCS remote duel, it was topping
not here. It was
not here, no.
As soon as VFD was gone, it kind of dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah, it kind of did. But yeah, I don't think there's any outright terrible matchups this deck has. Like the Necros Dogmatica I played at Yu-Gi-Oh! Day with garbage against control and mid-range, and it was only good against like meta combo decks.
Which if you lose the rowers.
Yeah, I mean, this deck, I didn't struggle going first or second. I had enough hand traps and staples that I could, play through boards, or, stuff like red layer being a starter for free. I could just summon them and threaten stuff and go from there. Right, and on with the extra deck for links, Dagda and BLS. Dagda I only used once all match to get the Scythe, but the synergy there is that you make Dagda, get Grand Pulse out, set Scythes from deck, and then pop it their turn, same as Tornado Dragon. I'd keep it. It's not only at some decks, but it just didn't come up last night. BLS Link, good against control, because Striker and stuff's back, but if you do make sure you use White Layer, but at the same time, don't use White Layer's effect to send a quant to graveyard and copy its level on attribute, because I did that greedily once and then wanted to make BLS, but White Layer made himself level 4. So that was stupid. For Xyz monsters, Utopia Double, Utopia Prime Lightning. This deck can make rank 4s, so why not? Double did come up and win me a game. It was against Tri Brigade, and if my opponent had a lucky top deck with a Tri Brigade name, I was probably screwed, because my only other option they could have made instead of double would have been either just Sylvan Lightning or Dweller, which doesn't do a hell of a lot if they draw a Tri Brigade, normal it, and use effect to banish. Definitely keep these. Then for the rest of the Xyzes that aren't quants, Dweller, didn't make it all night. Draw Driver, came in clutch and won me a match. And Gaia Dragon. I should have had Cowboy in here. I took it out for the BLS link, which was dumb, because I was in time against a Paleo player, and he ended on like Link Rebo and some back row. I twin twisted his back row, and he sent a Paleo or something. I impermed the Link Rebo, and he brung back a Paleo in defense. I had two Super Quantal green layers, so I could normal one, special the other to make a rank 4. But I realized after I summoned them, I didn't have Cowboy and couldn't do damage. So realized I had Drill Driver. I slapped down Dweller, put Drill Driver on top, and then declared battle with like 2 seconds on the clock and just punched for some damage. So a little too close for comfort. So I'd probably cut Gaia Dragon for Cowboy back. Reason being, Gaia Dragon is only here to slap on top of the rank 5 Super Quant just to make Zeus for 4. And that doesn't generally come up because you don't hard make the Super Quants all too often. And even then, just making that the Quant with 1 material and then slapping Zeus down is enough. I think Cowboy comes up more than this, but I played it because it's shiny. And then for the actual Super Quant Exeses, we have Grampulse, Ouroboros, Magnoliga, and Lustrix. They all have a lot of text, but you can condense it down that they can't attack unless they have material. They can all, during your turn, attach a Super Quantum pilot from hand or field to them as material. And then they've all got effects. So you've got MST, Book of Moon, Rakihi Break, and Chalice. And then all of these effects are only ignition, but if they have their matching pilot, you know, the one with the same color level and attribute, they'll become quick effects. So this is generally your go-to. You know, get a pilot out, get field spell, and then sit on these guys, and then when the materials detach, they'll float and recur and do all sorts of shit. Or you can just hard make them. And then for the other field spell effect, you can make Super Quantal Mech Great Key Magnus, who in my opinion is one of the strongest boss monsters in the game. Needs 3 level 12s to make. This deck has no level 12s, but the field spell lets you cheese him out. And based on the number of different named materials, this guy gains effects. So if you have 2 different materials, he is able to, during either player's main phase, detach and non-targeting shuffle a card and field in the deck. If you have 4 or more, he's unaffected by card effects except Super Quantums. And if you have 6 or more, he says your opponent can't add cards to their hand from deck by any card effect. So this stops searching, but it also stops draw cards as well. This guy on his own is a win condition against a lot of decks with 6 materials. But he does lose to Kaijus. But if he does get sent to the graveyard somehow, he special summons 3 Super Quant Exeses back from the graveyard. And that's by any means too. I've tried Dogmatic and bullshit out with this deck, but it's terrible. Don't do that. I have an addiction to Dogma and I'm not afraid to admit it. And then last card in the extra, because we play 13 disease monsters, Zeus. This guy's nuts. I don't need to explain him much. And yeah, although I didn't actually use him much at all on Friday. Like twice, I think I summoned him. And then lastly, onto the side deck. It's more just generic stuff. Because this deck plays so many 3-orbs, it's really easy to side. You just look at your staples and hand traps and be like, okay, what's terrible in this matchup? What's good? So stuff to bring in. Nib. Against the meta decks, it's not amazing, but I built this for locals. And there are decks that definitely play into Nib, or some people who are playing the meta decks here. Like Salaman Great, Hero, those sort of decks where you can just sit there and you look at your hand with Nib and it's like, okay, I don't have to think. End of main, you just like reveal Nib and watch them die inside. Next one, Droll. Really good. This is for the Drytron matchup, especially, but it's also just good against lots of stuff. You know, your Invoke Dogma decks, random rogue decks that just search a shit ton. If you can figure out, you know, what you're playing against, if Droll's good or not. And then some back row removal, Twin Twisters. Twin's really good in this deck because you don't neg off the discard, because the Super Quants all just say if this card is sent to graveyard, it doesn't have to be by card effect, and it's not a win, it doesn't miss timing. So if you discard one for Twin, you know, they then do stuff, so you actually like plus even harder on card economy. And that's the same reason why Forbidden Droplets in here, same sort of thing, just at outing problems, but you don't neg as hard from the cost of Droplet. You know, good card. And then for the last slot in the extra, this was in the main, but I switched it for Desires, and I'm glad that I did, was Torrential. I didn't think about siding this in all night, and I definitely cut it going forwards. I think that the synergy is there, because if you blow up your own Super Quants, you know, they do stuff and they float, yada yada yada, but there was never a situation like, I wish that one of my set cards was Torrential. Having, you know, Order and Strike
It's not very good in this format.
Nah, it's not very good in this format either. Like, you do it against Tri Brigade. On their normal, yeah, same as Salaman, great, but you can achieve the same end goal just by using Magna-like or Ouroboros to book or pop their normal summon, and you don't nuke your own board.
What do you think you'd replace it with?
I'm honestly not sure, to be honest. There was nothing really that I was like, oh, I'm really missing this. This is a big weakness. There's always the option of like...
Crow.
Yeah, Crow or like Pank, Duster, and Reboot, just for 3 really sacky one-offs. That is an option, but yeah, probably something I just have to figure out. I don't know if I'll play this again. I mean, my objective with this deck was to take it to locals and do well, but I then went in 5-0'd against, you know, meta matchups, because I played Paleo, PK with Dragoon, Sky Striker with an Orcust Engine as well, but he ended up just playing Sky Striker cards because the Orcust Engine was tiny. Getting engaged for 3 draws in a turn is not fun. I hate that. Then Tri Brigade, and then last round was Medolce, which was like a going second build. And I thought I had him game 1 because I won die roll and started. I flipped Imperial Order on his Prosperity when I had 4 back row set, and he rebooted me. But luckily his Prosperity whiffed, and I think he had to... What do you have to get? He had to get a play for next turn, but that meant that waiting till that next turn, all my back row was live again. So
we're not going to see this at South Island Champs?
Probably not, no. I mean, I've 5-0'd locals with Super Quants. I've done my bit. This deck's insane. It's so much fun. I don't think I'd recommend taking it to a YCS. I mean, you may with the shock factor of people just not knowing what your cards do. I mean, we have those, was it the championships that we qualified for with Yu-Gi-Oh! Day coming up. I could bring it to one of those, but I've got some other decks I want to work on for that. But I think other than that, that's about it really. The only really shout out I'd give would just be to Will at TCG Collector for congrats on opening this new store. It's really nice. It's best place you had to play in Christchurch for a very long time. And then next week I'm going to play some more random rogue bullshit, so keep an eye out for a last place profile on that, because I guarantee it's a lot worse than this. And until then, just remember to like and subscribe and have fun.
Mystic R's out.